afternoon. Well, we'll start with the next session. This session is related with the socio-technical system. There are 4 speakers and we offer several areas on the social studies, the science and the technique. The first speaker is Cristian Lopez. He works in National Autonomous University of Mexico, Campus Morelia, and talk about cultural archaeology of video games between nostalgic discourse, gamer experience, and technological innovation. Perhaps 20 minutes or so. Quarter time.
Gracias, buenas tardes a todos. Seré lo más breve posible, ¿sí? Para dejar sobre todo tiempo al final, ¿no? Para la conversación, creo que es interesante. Presento muy brevemente el trabajo que hemos realizado en los últimos años junto con Simone Belli de la Universidad Complutense de Madrid respecto a un espacio dentro de lo que denominamos como Game Studies, es decir, el campo de estudio sobre los videojuegos, que seguramente por su juventud, ¿no? Carente, ¿no? O todavía no especialmente desarrollado. Es decir, todo aquel campo que tiene que ver con la experiencia del videojugador y no con la producción de los objetos, ¿no? Del campo de los videojuegos, es decir, de la relación que se establecen entre unos y otros, ¿no? A través del concepto de arqueología cultural y de introducción de formas metodológicas cualitativas. Paso rápidamente a mostraros cómo. ¿Cómo hacer, ¿no? ¿Cómo hacer arqueología cultural? ¿Cómo darle la vuelta a un concepto que está pensado precisamente para aquello más alejado y utilizarlo en lo más cercano, ¿no? Cómo poder hacer arqueología de algo coetáneo. La idea del retro gaming, ¿no? O la idea de esa vuelta a un pasado presente, ¿no? Porque cuando hablamos del pasado en el videojuego estamos hablando de apenas 40 años atrás, en el mejor de los casos, nos lleva a un fenómeno local en el videojuego, pero que nos parece interesante lo que ocurre ahí, porque perfectamente podemos extenderlo a nociones más amplias de cultura, ¿no? Vivimos en una especie de constante revival, ¿no? En términos de reciclaje de los objetos culturales del pasado presente, ¿no? ¿Por qué los videojuegos? Bueno, la pregunta sería, ¿cómo no estamos hablando de los videojuegos, ¿no? Los videojuegos representan hoy, y desde hace ya más de 20 años, la primera industria del entretenimiento en el mundo. Los datos son muy clarificadores. La industria del videojuego factura 3 veces más que la industria del cine, la literatura y la música juntas. Con lo cual, el volumen de negocio y el volumen de población, si en algún momento de esa década de los 80 o 90 nos preguntábamos por quiénes eran los videojugadores, hoy nos preguntamos quién no es videojugador, ¿no? Es prácticamente imposible conocer a una persona que en algún momento de su vida, a algún nivel de intensidad, no haya jugado, ¿no? Aunque sea de forma muy ocasional, con algún tipo de aplicación que llamamos videojuego. Bien, nosotros nos vamos a centrar en un periodo histórico reciente, en especial en el caso español, donde nos interesa recuperar en términos metodológicos esas experiencias que articulan la experiencia de los jugadores en relación a aquello que los objetos, en este caso las videoconsolas, los juegos, generaban en ellos, ¿no? En términos de experiencias individuales y colectivas. Es decir, nos estamos enfocando en esa visión sociotécnica de los objetos, no tanto para hablar de la producción y el sentido de los objetos, sino de los sentidos y significados que se construyen a través y con los objetos. Esta es una imagen que me parece interesante, ¿no? Porque ya sabéis que a principios de los 80 la industria del videojuego recién creada tiene una crisis en términos económicos y de producción. Y este es el caso muy particular de un videojuego creado en los 80 que venía a utilizar en parte el contenido de la famosa película Steven Spielberg, E.T. El videojuego no fue suficientemente adecuado, ¿no?, en términos de calidad, y la productora decidió enterrarlos en el desierto, ¿no? Hace unos años, en el 2014, una expedición arqueológica decidió desenterrar esas joyas del pasado presente. Bien, ¿cómo realizamos en términos metodológicos de la investigación? Bueno, lo hacemos fundamentalmente a través de una metodología cualitativa, a través de entrevistas en profundidad de diferentes sujetos que reconstruyen de forma biográfica sus recuerdos y experiencias en relación a esos objetos. A la vez, también utilizamos lo que denominamos como textos culturales, es decir, fundamentalmente objetos que devienen textualidades culturales y por tanto nos hablan de esas mismas relaciones. En especial nosotros trabajamos con lo que en aquel entonces, la década de los 90, funcionaba como espacios de comunicación, es decir, las revistas vinculadas a todo eso. Algunas son muy conocidas, en especial los que hayan vivido esa generación en este país, ¿no? Pero en aquel entonces se convertían fundamentalmente en los únicos espacios, ¿no?, analógicos donde se compartía información, ¿no? Bien, ¿por qué la España de los 90? Porque aunque ahora parezca extraño, en la España de los 90, de los 80, principios de los 90, España se convirtió en un espacio especialmente relevante en la producción de videojuegos, ¿no? Y por tanto, junto con el Reino Unido, se convirtió en una de las dos industrias más importantes continentales de producción. De hecho, se apropió en términos culturales la industria y se generaron una serie de juegos, ¿no?, con temáticas locales, solo comprensibles casi en términos culturales, ¿no? Hay que pensar que eran producciones muy simples, ¿no? Estábamos en la época de los 8 bytes, ¿no? Y aquí tenemos una serie de títulos, ¿no?, que fueron muy famosos en los primeros años, ¿no?, y que estaban claramente contextualizados, ¿no? Es decir, había una especie de feedback, ¿no?, una unida y venir de los objetos y los discursos en relación a su construcción. También es importante cuando hablamos de objetos, no solo hablar de objetos, sino de espacios, ¿no? Y hablar de los espacios donde se jugaba, ¿no? Uno de esos espacios son las famosas salas de juego, ¿no? Salas de juego que para nada son un invento moderno, existen desde finales de mediados del siglo XVIII, ¿no?, y siempre han tenido la misma mala fama hasta nuestros días. Y las consolas domésticas. ¿Por qué es importante esto? Porque estos objetos, estos espacios, es decir, las salas de juego y las casas, se convertían en espacios de compartir, ¿no?, espacios donde los videojugadores construían sus propias subjetividades. Nosotros nos apartamos de la idea pasiva, ¿no?, de nuevo en términos de una psicología muy mecánica, y de las ideas de que la tecnología impacta en los usuarios, ¿no? Nosotros preferimos utilizar la metáfora, no la metáfora del impacto, que de alguna otra forma incluye la pasividad de uno de los dos elementos, en este caso los usuarios, por la metáfora de la lectura, ¿no? Esa metáfora de la lectura entiende que no somos impactados por la tecnología, no somos impactados por el videojuego, sino que nos relacionamos y leemos, ¿no? Lo vamos construyendo, no estamos pasivos delante de eso, ¿no? Respecto eso en relación a las entrevistas. En relación a los materiales, ¿no? Pensemos que estamos en la era del analógica, ¿no? No existía Internet, apenas las primeras interfaces gráficas con las cuales se relacionaba esa generación eran los videojuegos, no había forma de conectar todavía las videoconsolas como hoy. Entonces, los espacios de socialización y de construcción de comunidad precisamente derivaban de esas publicaciones escritas, ¿no? Donde no solo se intercambiaba información, se ayudaba a avanzar, ¿no? Y se compartían sobre todo las novedades, con lo cual ponía en marcha la máquina en términos del consumo, ¿no? Siempre se presentaba aquello que iba a salir precisamente para ir anticipando la compra. Esta era habitualmente la imagen que encontrábamos en esas publicaciones, ¿no? Se valoraban, se hacía toda una construcción valorativa de las novedades en términos de gráficos, jugabilidad, ¿no? Todas aquellas categorías que eran importantes a la hora de los jugadores, ¿no? Y sobre todo se compartía cuán difícil se le hacía a alguien poder o no avanzar, ¿no? ¿Por qué nos parece interesante traerlo al caso español, ¿no? Pensemos que seguramente es el primer espacio de socialización colectiva en relación a la tecnología, mucho antes de que llegaran las computadoras, mucho antes de que llegaran la telefonía móvil inteligente. Pero todo eso solo creemos, ha podido funcionar en esos términos porque en parte esa generación construyó sus habilidades y sus formas de relación con la tecnología precisamente en este tipo de juegos, ¿no? Que ahora nos pueden parecer de nuevo arqueologías. Os enseño aquí algunas imágenes de la publicidad de la época, ¿no? Con los iconos culturales que hoy ya se han convertido fundamentalmente en iconos colectivos, ¿no? Recordad solo los futuros Juegos Olímpicos a realizarse en Tokio, en Japón. Toda la imagen de los Juegos Olímpicos está absolutamente permeada por los videojuegos. De hecho, el vídeo promocional de los Juegos Olímpicos inicial, ¿no? Que se presentó justo en la inauguración, la ceremonia de clausura de los anteriores Juegos Olímpicos, era la entrega de la antorcha al presidente japonés de la mano de Mario Bros, ¿no? Para que veamos hasta qué punto, ¿no? Está interiorizado en un país como Japón, ¿no? Con lo cual, esa idea de que lo que en entonces era un grupo minoritario de personas, ¿no? Con una afición o con un tipo de actividad que no era en la mayoría de los casos ni entendida ni comprendida, generó y posibilitó muchas de las cuestiones que hoy denominamos como innovación. Claro, para eso hubo que saltar, ¿no? Toda la cuestión fundamentalmente de los prejuicios, ¿no? Que ya hablamos brevemente ayer, no voy a volver sobre el tema de los prejuicios y los videojuegos, pero sí nos parecía muy interesante, ¿no? Precisamente ver cómo esa arqueología cultural, ¿no? Que hemos podido realizar sobre los relatos y la construcción respecto al género, respecto a los estereotipos, respecto a la interacción con palabras que hoy son de uso común, como accesibilidad, ¿no? En videojuegos en términos de jugabilidad, ¿no? Y de desarrollo gráfico, que en aquel entonces era un lenguaje casi oculto para la mayoría de la población, se convirtieron precisamente en nuevas formas de relación, ¿no? Entonces, lo interesante, creemos, es cambiar en gran parte de la investigación de ese campo que denominamos estudios sociales sobre la ciencia y la tecnología, esa visión de los sujetos pasivos delante de los efectos o las relaciones con esa tecnología, ¿no? A nosotros nos interesa mucho más pensar a los sujetos en términos sociotécnicos como constructores y formas de apropiarse y de construir significados y sentidos no pensados en un inicio con ellos, ¿no? Cuando se producen estos primeros desarrollos en videojuegos, no estaban pensadas las comunidades de jugadores. Las comunidades de jugadores o de videojugadoras se crean en relación a espacios no pensados, pero son igual o más importantes muchas veces que aquello que es producido, ¿no? Entonces, eso que hoy vemos totalmente desarrollado en el mundo virtual y conectado empieza a cocinarse, llamémoslo así, en este mundo, ¿no?, todavía casi analógico de las videoconsolas de los 80 y principios de los 90. Creemos que esa forma, ¿no?, en la cual trabajamos este tipo de objetos tecnológicos puede aportar, ¿no?, puede tener un acercamiento a estos fenómenos culturales de una forma mucho más rica que la visión muchas veces muy plana, ¿no?, muy causal de los efectos generales de cierta producción de tecnología en los sujetos, ¿no?, sino que nos interesa más ver cómo se construyen esas narrativas en términos mucho más pequeñas, ¿no?, de construcción de subjetividades respecto de la tecnología. Muchas gracias.
Hola, muchas gracias por la presentación. Te quería hacer una pregunta. Después de este estudio, ¿no?, cualitativo que habéis hecho, ¿qué es lo que pensáis los autores qué es lo que más os ha llamado la atención después de todo este estudio?
Well, I don't know very well what to answer to this question, but I think the most interesting thing is that it's possible to do an exercise of archaeology of a cultural product, like video games. Yeah, and because it's not only to revise what happened like 30 years before in literature, but also to do the material exercise to remove things, to find, like in this case, a video game of Atari 2600, I think, of E.T. video games, the extraterrestrial, the movie of Steven Spielberg. Why to be this? Because in 1986, I think, when was the release of his movie, in only 2 months, informatics need to give to the customers of video games based on the movie. And it was impossible with the technology of the 80s. And they try, and they have produced a lot of cartridge, but the game was very, very bad. Well, it was one of the worst games of the history of the video games. And Atari, closed with the business, was out of business for this reason. And they need to remove this cartridge from the market. And one thing was to put under the earth. It's very interesting. And I think there is a movie based on this event.
Tal vez los expertos de videojuegos os comentaron algo de si habían... Bueno, no sé si alguien ha podido jugar a este videojuego y si los expertos os han comentado si lo han hecho.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah. Because you can play in internet with this game, and the game is very bad, and you cannot recognize the patterns of the video games in the movie. And it's a popular accord, but this is one of the worst video games of the history.
Hay otras dimensiones que me parecen especialmente fructíferas, como por ejemplo el papel y la apropiación o las dificultades para apropiarse de esa tecnología, por ejemplo, de las mujeres, ¿no? En los relatos, en términos de construcción de cómo jugaban ellas, en relación de cómo se relacionaban con el resto de jugadores, ¿no? Fuera y dentro, ¿no? Por ejemplo, el tema de los espacios, ¿no? Porque en esos relatos muchas veces aparecen formas de discriminación, ¿no? Es decir, en muchos de los relatos aparecen, por ejemplo, como la videoconsola hoy en día no tiene tanto sentido en términos de que hay muchos dispositivos repartidos en todos los sujetos de un hogar, pero en la década de los 80, principios de los 90, era una consola doméstica que había que conectar a la televisión de la casa. Y muchas veces ellas accedían a jugar cuando el hermano dejaba de jugar, ¿no? Entonces, esa idea de que se convertía en un aparato masculinizado, ¿no? Y que el juego se iba masculinizando, no porque ellas no jugaran, sino porque había cierta jerarquía, ¿no? Por ejemplo, en las salas de... Eso, domésticamente, en las salas de juego, ¿no? Ellas sufrían... o sea, era un espacio mal visto para todos, doblemente mal visto para las chicas, ¿no? Entonces, todos los relatos de construcción de su relación con esa tecnología en particular es especialmente fructífera, creo, en términos de ver cómo se ha ido construyendo muchas veces estereotipos, formas de alejar, ¿no? Por ejemplo, a las mujeres de a las chicas, ¿no? Del juego como tal, ¿no? Como si no fuese una cosa de ellas, ¿no? Y en esos relatos, ¿no? De volver a recordar lo que hacíamos, ¿no? En diferentes espacios, ¿no? Alejado, pero ya en forma de reconstrucción de la memoria, es interesante porque podemos ver cómo se ha ido precisamente construyendo la industria en relación a eso, ¿no? Qué tipo de contenidos y problemas que llegan hasta hoy, en términos de el encaje, ¿no? de las mujeres en la industria, en la producción de contenidos, en el uso de sus contenidos, ¿no? Solo hay que recordar hace un año o dos, cuando corregirme, el 8 de marzo, ¿no? La famosa huelga, uno de los portales más famosos aquí en España de videojuegos decidió ir a la huelga, porque todas sus editoras eran mujeres, pero sus lectores no lo sabían. Y entraron en ira porque descubrieron que aquello que llevaban leyendo durante años y que les encantaba estaba redactado por mujeres y no fueron capaces de asimilarlo, ¿no? Que su espacio, un espacio que ellos construían de masculinidad, hubiese estado pensado, producido por mujeres, ¿no? Entonces, nos enseña toda una trayectoria de construcción de esas subjetividades en el campo específico de los videojuegos, pero también en el campo de producción de tecnología, ¿no? Entonces, eso aparece en las narraciones de los sujetos, ¿no?
Muy interesante, muchas gracias.
Bueno, vamos a... The next speaker is Simón Bell, Effects of Digital Transformation in Scientific Collaboration. He's from the Complutense University of Madrid. He's well known here.
Hello, good afternoon, and I merge this presentation with the other one that I have in this session, ICT and Science, how apply informatics change scientific network, because these two papers are part of the same project. It's an Horizon 2020 project, the name is EULAC Focus, and we focus on scientific bi-regional relationships between European Union and Latin America and Caribbean countries. My part in this project was to map the scientific collaboration and in a special way the digital transformation of this practice. I think that our everyday life and our professional lives have completely changed in the last 10 years for this new technology. But the most interesting thing for us, for this project, is how I've changed the collaboration, the professional collaboration, in this special case, the scientific collaboration. But what is a scientific collaboration? I think that everybody in this room collaborate, participate, not only with the colleagues of the same department or of the same university, but also with another university, for example, in my case with the UDIMA, or another country, for example, UNAM in Mexico. Yeah, for this matter, we have a scientific offline collaboration and scientific online collaboration. So we have a very complex networks. The working together of researchers to achieve the common goal of producing new scientific knowledge. This is the reason of why we work together. Because the science in this century is not on an individual thing, but we need to work in a cooperatively, in a collaborative way. And for example, to organize this congress, to publish in a good scientific journal, or to achieve funding from an international agency. So we have a purpose, and for this reason that we collaborate together. I come from a department of social psychology. Yeah, for this reason that I'm very interested in how people work together, how people interact together, and how they communicate, cooperate, share emotions, positive and negative, and of course, how they use this new technology to achieve this purpose. Our research question revolves around the interrogation of how social ties affect usage of analogical and digital objects of research. We have 4 research questions. The first one is, how has the digital transformation, namely in the replacement of analog by digital tools at the academic level in this case, but we have studied other professional settings, for example, in hospitals, in artistic study, in football teams, different professional settings, but with the same patterns many times, but they share similar patterns. And the second research question is, what is the role of technology in researchers' workplace? It's important or not important, or it is something that it's at the basis of this relationship, but we don't think continuously in this change from the analog to digital. The third research question is, what is the place of communication and social interaction in the scientific process? And the last, that I consider the most interesting, what is the affordance of analogical and digital objects used by researchers in their activity? I mentioned the term of affordance because not only in the social science, but in other disciplines, it's very important to study the possibility, the wide range of possibility that a digital tool can offer to their users. For these authors, the affordance has provided a kind of middle ground between technological determinism and social construction. Social construction is something that individuals construct together with words, with practice, with their activities. It's a social construction. A move that allows the researcher to point to the materiality or functions of technology while reminding that these functions are always subsumed by users' action. To do this part of the research, we use a mixed method, both quantitative and qualitative, both data collection analysis oscillating between the qualitative, like ethnographic, and interviews and observations, and also with the quantitative, like survey data. So I present data from these two types of methodology. This is an example on of how we recollect the data in these last 4 years to understand the complexity to study these networks, these scientific networks. For the quantitative data, we use this questionnaire. The questionnaire contains items relating to digital transformation in science, digital communication, scientific production, and research activities. We observed 159 variables. This is the demographic pattern of the sample of survey, with the age and their proportion divided by gender. The country that have participated in this survey is not on a very representative survey of the relation between Latin America and European Union, because we recollect this survey like a snowball method from Ecuador. For this reason, that we sent the survey from Ecuador to the rest of our networks. For this reason, that network and later Spain and the first position Spain have most answered. The disciplines from where work this researcher that answered to the survey, we can observe that it's there are half hard science and hard from social science and humanity. It's equilibrated. And for the qualitative data, we do this ethnography. It's a cognitive ethnography. We put different video cameras and taking pictures from different parts of the room to study what is the communication at work. For example, the setting are laboratories, offices, shared space, like a kitchen in the department, or the researcher take the coffee, for example, in front of the coffee machine. It's formal settings and informal setting. Because many of the most important decisions-making processes of the professionals not only are in the meetings or in the laboratory or in the formal setting, but it's very important to study the informal setting. For example, in a coffee break in a conference, the coffee break in a conference or in a lunch, it's where it's an informal context, but the ties between researchers, the ties between colleagues are more strong. So in this case, we are looking at the digital transformation of science. And the concept that we try to observe are epistemic objects. For example, this notebook or this pen, it's an object, but speaking about this notebook or this pen or this computer, I can tell a story. I can do storytelling from an object. And because I can construct a story, I can share perceptions, ideas, emotions with my colleagues. And the embodied cognition. Embodied cognition is a concept from cognitive science, and can allow to us to understand how we work in a collaborative environment, and every people, every professional, every researcher that work in the same research share the same epistemic objects, share the same ideas and concept, and understand the research that do their colleagues. It's the same thing that happen in the good sport teams. For example, in good football team, why they are good? Because every player in the field play in the way that the other one understand this play, this game. Yes, this is our, for example, of objects in this academic space that we have observed. And of course, when we pass from this on academic space without humans, without the researchers, and pass it to this with subjects work together, with the researchers work, we observe this complexity. Complexity is the different type of interactions from the subject with the object, and also between subjects. Of course, to understand the concept of embodied cognition, we need to think. I think yesterday we have observed with Florencia the same structure from centralized network or decentralized network, and at the end a distributed network. The science is moved in this way. Maybe 50 years ago was a centralized network with a great scientist or great researchers, and with his or her team. Later, small group work in similar thing, but at the moment we observed in this big research project, like in Horizon 2020, we work in distributed network. And of course, or distributed cognition. This is an example of the co-authorships publications between the two regions. Is it possible to do science in less developed country like Ecuador? Because we work with these digital tools. Yes. Maybe 50 years, this was impossible, and maybe 20 years ago, because a country like Ecuador was isolated from the academic network. But at the moment, it's not a problem to do good science in a part of the less developed world. Yes, because maybe we cannot have scientific infrastructures. Maybe we cannot not have good laboratory in Ecuador, but with this scientific collaboration, we can recollect data, for example, in Galapagos Islands, and to send this data to Madrid or to Berlin. And later, they analyze this data and discuss together with Ecuador and other countries to achieve a solution for a problem or scientific innovations. And many times the last product of this work is a scientific network. For example, that we work in co-publication scientific networks. It's empirically observable. And the complexity, to study this, we have used a diary to recollect everything that this researcher, this subjects, do with the object. This is how many field work we have done, how many waves, how many hours composed of this project, the tools that we use, and the analysis software, Atrasti and Boss Viewer, for example. But I suggest to read the complete scientific paper published in the proceeding of this Congress. And to analyze all these data, we need to construct a code. Yes, we need to construct the object of our study. So we consider a researcher as the expert in their domains with superior knowledge about their activity. We coded the video with Atrasti. It's a qualitative software for qualitative analysis for small scale of interaction. And the complexity for us is a social material network, like in the example. In this social material network, we have a subject, object, and interaction between them. But these objects, we have divided in analogical objects and digital objects. So we are observing three-mode network of object usage, connecting actors to analogical and digital objects, captures the relationship between the three orders represented by the three types of relation. The first are social ties. The second one, link between objects as they are combined and collocated in the analogical and digital space. And third one, the links between actors, subjects, researchers, and objects. The use through its practice is Affordance, the range of possibility of use of this. The circles in this network represent the actors, the researchers. The triangles are the analogical objects. The squares are the digital objects. The black lines between the actors, the circle, are social ties, communications between researchers. The cyan lines are material links. Why material link? Because this pen has a relation with this notebook. This is a material links. And the gray lines is the usage of analogical objects. The black double lines are the usage of digital objects. From the subject, the researcher, to the digital object. For example, I use this personal computer now. The cyan double lines are the digital links. For example, a software has a digital link with another software. And the gray double lines represent the analogical and digital links, hardware with software. Double lines represent a more connected context between objects. For example, the Internet of Things that we have speak a lot in these 3 days of the Congress. So the data formalization and construction of the social material network and its affordance. Only objects used by the last 2 members were included in the data set. Only when we have this or relation between the object used by the last 2 members. Based on riggings, links between objects indicating their involvement in the same activities were based on functional relation between the items. For example, being used together, like a bottle and a glass. Or their physical proximity, continuous collocation, for example, a computer near a microscope. The data on links was triangulated with the results of the surveys as well, based on the ethnographic observations and interview answers about ties with other researchers collected during the file study. Data processing resulted in 153 3-level social material networks that included social types of collaboration, link between object and object usage. The most common way to communicate between researchers, we can observe here the essential object, the essential way to communicate is the emails. This is are recollected from our data observation. Later we have the instant message, video conference, phone calls, and letters, not analogical letters. The most frequent terms shared by researchers in the interview and in survey data are research in first position, later information, access, university, project, digital communication, data, laboratory, technology. The 12 most frequent objects shared by researchers, analogical or digital, are journal, article, software, computer, email, Google, book, Facebook, Skype, Scopus, WhatsApp, Dropbox. I only put here two observations, an example of two observations. In the first observation, this is the observation 2, the first action is to turn on his computer of the researcher because we are observing a researcher in various activities. The first action is to turn on his computer and open a software called Python. After 3 minutes, he searched data that a colleague from Spain, Vincent, sent to his email. Then he inserts this new data in the program and reviews it in 26 minutes. Always with Python, he writes the new code for a program that helps to work with many terabytes of data. After 20 minutes, he sends the code to his partner in Spain, who has a supercomputer that can manage all the data and give the results. In the next 5 minutes, he communicates with Victor using Skype, and he confirms that the results will be ready for the next day. While the two computers, Jorge computers and Vincent computers, are interconnected, Jorge can observe the process of the data elaboration thanks to different graphs and fluctuations. Both are chatting from their cell phone using WhatsApp to be informed if any problem occurs, as he explained in the extract file. This is the extract file, Jorge said. To communicate with Malaga by Skype, by WhatsApp, email, and when I go to Spain in a personal way, at this moment, the communication is direct by internet. If you have a Skype and WhatsApp, there are no problems. This is the social material network constructed from this observation and from this abstract. So we have in the circle Vincent and Jorge, the relation between them, the use of the digital, the analogical object and the use of the digital object. And we have different ties and we observe different connection. We have some clusters, some triadic clusters composed from an actor, a digital object, and an analogical object. This structure is composed by the 3 nodes of our networks, the actors, the analogical object, and the digital object. We have several examples of these triadic clusters. And maybe we can think in our everyday activity or professional activity how we generate continuously these triadic clusters. In the second one, in this first observation, sorry, but because this presentation was more longer and I could the first one observation. In this observation, we have seen researchers affirm that firstly, technology helps to maintain the contact. This is no noise. Researchers affirm that first technology helps to maintain the contact between them. The distribution of the knowledge passes across social material networks without geographical barriers, allowing to increase scientific collaborations. The colleague from another laboratory, from Malaga, for example, can give precious information that researcher that has collected the information does not have, and does not waste time to continue to recollect data if this information is not relevant. So social material networks are sustainable and cheap because many travelers are not necessary. Because researchers do not waste time to collect useless data, for example, send this to the laboratory, traveling, etc. But we have another observation in this presentation to present why affordance work in our everyday life and how this affordance produce positive and negative emotions in the usage of this analogical and digital object. We have this extract from an interview from a researcher. I'm not comfortable because I don't know how to use it. Word is more performative in several different meanings. Different people working at the same time in Google Docs with the same document, and this is very powerful. But at the same time, there is an alternative. The alternative, of course, is using documents on Dropbox. And in Dropbox, you can use Word. And at the same time, you have a register to sharing, and how can I say, or sort by the possibility to have a contemporary process that occur. But this is Dropbox, of course, today is very popular, or not just popular, but popular in the sense that it's a very democratic. In some way, it's a democratization of something that was or just or remain within a very kind of working environment. So we have drawn this TriDeck cluster, this three-mode social material networks with the interview researcher P that connect with his laptop, the triangle L, and we observe these double lines, gray lines from the laptop to the digital object, Google Drive in one case, and the other one is the Dropbox. But we also have how a double colored line, red with Google Drive and green with Dropbox, to emerge to show how a software produce in the user negative emotions, and the other one produce positive emotion in his narratives. And this emotion is not produced with the use of the analogical object. The laptop is not the problem. The problem is the software. It's the digital object. The digital object produces a specific emotions, a specific positive and negative emotion. And for this, we think that the social material network produce an emotional attachment where we can differentiate, in this case, positive attitudes or not positive attitudes. It's not so comfortable for this user to use Google Drive, not the same way that he used Dropbox. So we have this relation between this interaction between the actor, analogical object, and the digital object, and we understand that emotional attachment is not direct related to the link between the actor and the analogical object, but produced from the triad of these three relations. To conclude, the ways joint material embeddedness of researchers is achieved makes a contrast to that of collaborative relationships, which explicitly embody themselves in the physical world through sharing objects in joint work depending on task area of the researcher. As the ethnographic data also shows, the work of the social material structuring principle is almost invisible, hiding in the nuances of seemingly trivial everyday actions and relations between analogical and digital objects, in which colleagues, other researchers, and be thrown on an emotional attachment without reflecting on it. Drawing a parallel with the concept of liquid love from Zygmunt Bauman, the concept of liquid science can also be presented arguing that it has transformed scientific activities into a type of practice where researchers can do research with colleagues from different parts of the world. These are the reference, and thanks for all.
Network science developed by Michael Nielsen. I mean that perhaps I like very much the presentation, but I mean that you are studying the practice of relationship between the research, but my question is, what happened with the science itself? Is changing. There are some kind of science that is appearing, emerging, that is not the same kind of study than before?
It's a very good question. I appreciate for this question because it's a question that we try to find a good answer, but we don't know if the science has improved thanks to this. And what is the difference between the science that research produced 50 years ago, for example? But we can observe, for example, good tendencies. For example, when you work in a less developed country. For example, I passed the last 5 years in Ecuador, in a very small town at the north of Ecuador, not in Quito, 4 hours from Quito. And it was the first time that in that part of the Andean regions, some researchers work to solve the local problem of the communities. Thanks to this new practice, to communicate, for example, with researchers from Spain, from Brazil, from other parts of the world, we can share knowledge and we can open this knowledge. For this reason, one of the purpose of this European project is to have a common policies to the open science, because we have an open science policies for European Union, but we don't have a common a common policy for Latin America. Every country in Latin America work in a separate way, many times that they connect directly with the European Union, but not between them. For example, Ecuador with Peru, Peru with Bolivia. For this reason, that I think we are improve the access to the science, for example, and this is a good thing, because in Ecuador, also if you work outside the university in an hospital, for example, you can access to this knowledge. You can put in contact with some researcher for this specific disease, and can give more knowledge about the problem. For this reason, with digital transformation, we need to go in the direction of the open science, open access, and open knowledge, and not only of the scientific publication, but also for the raw data.
There are other questions? Instead, the other questions. That perhaps the idea is that not only by the open, very important open science, but also because with the kind of interaction that you draw, appear new epistemic question. It is the more broader, other kind of science itself, because the diversity of the members of who are researching is different from the traditional research. So not only to offer the same question that the science put before, but new kind of study are able by this. Thanks. Well, now perhaps next speaker, Wolfgang. Now.
Thanks.
So now the title is the ICTs Connecting Global Citizens, Global Dialogue and Global Governance. Is your Wolfgang came from Vienna, from the Institute for Global Sustainable Information Society. And we are delighted to have you here with us.
I can connect to my keynote. This paper is an attempt to prove how a building block towards global sustainable information society could look like, and it's also a call for meaningful design and a call for people from the applied informatics community to help us and to make a joint project. So we just make a draft for a project which is mostly based on insights from social sciences and humanities. And we try to connect and get over to a kind of application which would help to achieve the goals we want to have. So what is it about? So we were 7 people who worked on that contribution, mostly peace researchers, and the basic idea is that we start from a starting point, which is an analysis of the situation of the world of today, and that is, as I already tried to show in my keynote, is a situation in which we have global challenges which challenge us with extinction, and that means that we have to do something against it if we don't want to get extinct. And on the other hand, we have also possibilities to do this. We have possibilities to turn the table around. So this picture I show you here is a visualization of what we would mean with a possible third step of humanization, or third step of anthroposociogenesis. Okay. We resort here to insights of anthropologists ideas that by which we can try to make distinctions between different steps, different processes going on in the evolution of mankind. So Michael Tomasello, he was director of the Institute of Evolutionary Anthropology in Leipzig, in Germany. He has these ideas. He said that the coming into being of humankind out of let's say animal ancestors was made by a kind of new cooperation. So that is also, if you look at literature of experimental economy, so we'll see that humans are the super cooperators compared to all other species on Earth. And what does it mean? It means that this was already in the beginning a new step of cooperation which differentiated us, so to speak, from chimpanzees before. And this cooperation is called dyads by Michael Tomasello. He says there are two individuals which agree to have a certain cooperation with hunting, and that means that they had also to communicate to each other, and that they would have to think that the other will will be helpful in doing the thing together. So it would, and this is what he calls the jointness of the level of integration. So this was in the beginning, and later on, when we had cultures, when culture appears, we have something different. It is not only dyads, but it is what he calls a triad. And the triad is not three persons. It is also not two persons and an object or something like this. It is persons on the one hand, and it is the general other, like with George Herbert Mead on the other side. That it's already a generalization of moral, of normativity, such that every individual can know if it is also a member of an anonymous community, to know what can it expect from another member of the same community, because they share the same roles. And this is called triad, and Michael Tomasello calls it also collectiveness or collectivity. So it's a collective intention what they have. Going on from this, we just need to add what I said about the great bifurcation, which means that we have these global challenges and that we have a choice to make between either increasing the complexity we have and make a new organization of mankind, or we will disintegrate, and by that civilization would go extinct and so on. So this is, we can call it, for instance, world society, but what we mean here is global sustainable information society, which is a possible and also the needful next step in the development or evolution of humanity. And this would be another level above the two levels we have already of triads and of dyads. I would like to call it omniad, a term I found somewhere in the literature, which means that it is a generalization of the different cultures on a planetary level. on the level of humanity. And you have cosmopolitans, and this would be the level of global governance. So, second idea is information processes can be understood on three levels. That is, on the cognitive level, on a communicative level, and on a cooperative level. So these are three levels. And we can now ask on what is the need to change on every level in order to come to be able to establish a global sustainable information society. So on the lowest level, when we have the cognitive level, on that level, we would have the so-called global citizens of the earth, and they are cosmopolitans. They have another consciousness, and another individual consciousness, and another individual conscience, and this is what you find already today in the making. And we call this here in the paper reform of thinking and education for citizens of the earth. It's a terminology we are using by Edgar Morin, a French philosopher and sociologist who is, I guess, approaching the 100 years of age and still alive. And he is a member of our GC's advisory group. And so what should be done here in order to implement global citizens, or in order to help transform the individuals we have today into individuals which are global citizens? So, and there are some ideas in the literature. We just took them and we selected them, and it is pedagogics for peace, global social justice, and a thriving planet. So, and this is to make everything. So, for instance, also what you, Simone, talked about, this could be a step in science towards global sustainable information society. Second level, what's about on the communication level? We call this constructive news for communicative democracy. On that level, the journalists say we always report only bad things, only now the word does not come to me, not sensational, but yeah, sensation, not sensation, bad things happened, yeah, accidents and whatever, and only bad things, and this is not helpful in order to build up this kind of governance which we would need, and to build up also global citizens. And so they found out something which they call transformation-oriented, impact-oriented, future-oriented, solution-oriented, constructive journalism. And that is, you report good things. You report where you find something in the world which can already, after what I said in my keynote, be generalized as a building block for the global sustainable information society. And the third thing is now the cooperation level. And we also studied the literature, and it is our idea to make an addendum to the United Nations General Assembly for a politics of humanity and civilization, also politics of humanity and civilization terms of Edgar Morin. And it's like a second chamber of a parliament if the General Assembly would turn into a parliament. I will not go into detail here, but this is a group which should be possible to be formed as kind of consultants for the General Assembly, and the basic idea behind this is that it's like a coalition of the willing, to take this politically and military terminology, ideological terminology, but the basic idea is, you need a kind of quorum. You cannot say I need all together. It's not possible. So, but you can have a quorum. We don't need where the quorum is, but we can try to find it out. And there have already been in the United Nations history quorums like this. And the last one was initiated by Austria, where a ban on the use of nuclear weapons was decided, was voted by the General Assembly, and it is not now binding for all, but binding for those who want it. And this is the way how we can get forward. And all of that needs, it longs for ITs that help to organize all these things. And this is what now my friend Jose will talk about.
Oh. Work. Yes, so without the graph is a little bit difficult to explain, but it's not working. And so the problem is not answering that. So the computer is something like that. Yeah. For some reason, it was open through this. This is just an image. It's nothing more. But it's even try to close it. Yeah. Yes. No, the picture. Yes, but the problem is that it's not actually es que no responde nada, no responde ni Windows. Voy a desconectar eso. Oh, power. Thank you. Thank you, Raul. Okay, so that's thank you to the cooperative level. We get to solve it the same thing that all the time since the beginning of the conference. So this is about how to implement this cooperative level built upon the other levels, so the cognitive and the communicative level. And the idea is to produce it. Okay, I know I need to be sitting down. Oh. Yeah. So the idea to get a solution using ICT technologies to make this cooperative level work. This is something we have been actually discussing from the very beginning, from Wednesday. We were saying, okay, we have a lot of tools. There's many things that that enable us to communicate, but then we were all the time asking, so what happened? So with the intentions of the people, what happened with the needs of the people? So how can we really build up this sustainable information society when we are not really addressing the big issues, and when the people cannot really get proper use and proper benefit of the management of information. Then the model that we propose, and I actually mentioned it in some of the examples of the projects that we have, is related to this cyber subsidiarity model, which the idea is to reconnect with the context. So in comparison to the common approach, to the normal approach that we can see, for example, in big data, is that in big data, we take all the data, no matter in what context, or even we can tag the context, but the idea is utilizing all the data for the benefit of something that is like a central institution, for example, or a company that tries to get profit of it. But what happened, so with the benefit of the people, what happened with the interest of the people? Like, for example, we were talking before about the algorithm and the problem of the algorithms in the implementation of these big data solutions is that we improve and we maximize the benefit of Google when they are selling advertising, and that produces so diverse searches and so on. But what happened with the maximizing of the solution of the problems that the people really have? So this is in a sense it has been decontextualized, because from different contexts, so the people are living in their communities, the people are living in their towns, in their regions, in their nations, countries, and continents, and so on, and the problems happens there. They have a very specific relation to that. No? So then one of the components to make that this cooperative level really happens is going back until the very person, until the very group. So in the beginning we have something that is autonomous, that is really working out. We as multicellular organism are a whole bunch of cells that get to work along, to work together, to make that we are sustainable. So at least we have something that is sustainable. So let's do for the next step the same thing. When we cooperate, for example, in this room, I need the cooperation of all you to make something if we want to solve a problem. If we really get to understand each other, we get to cooperate. There is actually a size, and it has been analyzed, for example, by the psychology of groups, how large a group can be in order to make it operable, to make that the people can really distribute the work and what it's needed to be solved, it's really done. Okay, so that means that actually there is like a size of the network of the agents that are interacting that is effective, and when we make it too gross, too big, then what happens is that the connections is too high, the complexity of the group is too high, and then it's difficult to get along and to find good solutions. So we have the complexity of the group, and we have the complexity that this group is able to afford regarding the problems they are really confronting. So the complexity of the interaction of the group, this system of people cooperating, needs to be larger than the complexity of the problems they really want to confront. This is related to the concept that Wolfgang posed yesterday in his keynote. This required information. So we need required variety is actually entangled. All does come from a theory of Ashby in system theory, and what we need is this required variety at any level, and considering what is the complexity at its level, and then creating, so for the group, the necessary variety, the necessary complexity to confront that. And for that we need that people are cooperating. So we have a person that is sustainable. My cells work very well together and they solve all the problems. I don't need to take care whether so my legs are moving, my hands are moving, I'm doing many things, and it happens so many things within myself, and I don't care about that. Practically none of this information that is needed to make all these movements that I'm doing right now come to my cortex. Practically nothing. And it's amazing the amount of information that is being held there. Why? Because that is sustainable is kept there. So the circuit is closed there, it cooperates, it works well, and then I get the pencil, I do whatever, and I still keep on talking. So I can concentrate in my talking. When we are a group, it happens the same. So we solve the problem. For example, we are doing here something. We are trying to get a manifesto, for example, and we develop the manifesto and we discuss a lot. All the discussion is not needed to go outside. If our purpose was to make this manifesto and this afterward, then make it public and then intend that the people also sign this manifesto, the only thing we need to put forward is this manifesto itself. So we don't need to exchange more information than that, because all the information that was needed, the cooperative information that is needed to make this manifesto, is there and is within the group. So we don't need to create flows of information that is not necessary. And I say this because actually, in comparison to that, so Google is using, for example, all the communication or all the big data projects that try to get advantage of the data. So the idea is, instead of doing that, we can reduce the flow of information and then build up through different levels. And what the model is, I'm not going to go into the details because this is very well explained by Stafford Beer with the viable system model. So you can look in the viable system model that was proposed, and it was very effectively taken into different scenarios. One of the first one was amazing because it was trying to make that the whole nationalized economy of Allende in Chile would work, and it really worked. They get to do it in less than 2 years, and because it was working, then the North American administration decided to bomb it and to put Pinochet because the thing was hard to be controlled. So the idea works, and what you can see in this diagram, so I'm talking about what we have on the right. You see the upper side are components that are sustainable, so they are autonomous and they are capable to confront all the problems that happens in the environment. You see the context, so is the operative environment. So there is a lot of exchanges. They interact with the environment, and they try to solve the problems. Most of the problems are solved there, and then the circuit is closed there. So no more information is needed to be passed to other parts. But in many occasions, because the context is actually not separated one from each other, then we have parts of parts of the environment that are together, or parts of the problems that belongs to two operative systems, so two operative components, and they need to cooperate. So in some cases, they need some cooperation, and then what we need is the triangles that are shown on the right. Then we need sometimes a cooperation between the groups, but taken as a group, not take it as, for example, 10 elements. And to make that in this case, we see 5, so these 5 components get well along to solve all the problems of their context combined. They need to have a good distribution of tasks. They need to have also an observation that what they intended to do, it's being done. So this is what is shown in the other triangle on the left. This is to observe that we are doing it. Actually, our bodies is doing the same. We have an observation. We have a our neuronal circuit. It flows from the afferent and efferent impulses. So it's similar to that. And we need a forward planning. We need to see the context as a whole. This is what is shown with the lower arrow. They need to look into the whole operative environment, which is not only what we have now in our context, but the expectation of how the context is going to be, the forward planning, and actually the planning in general, and our knowledge in general. It's more about how the world is going to be than how the world is in this moment. So what we are particularly interested in is in knowing how is it going to be, because this is the place in which we need to move. Therefore, we need to take decisions. So this is I'm talking about this system. This is for the forward planning. And then this other system, it's like equivalent to our neuronal cortex. The amount of information that is needed to this cooperative group, is very small. It's very reduced, but it provides like a whole idea of what we are doing, a whole idea, consensus also of what we are intending to do, or what this group is intended to do. And then it provides the basic, the fundaments of the cooperation. So the idea is that this model, this viable system model, can be applied at any level. So that means this is actually based on the model of a person, so who is autonomous. Therefore, the person is a viable system model, but then the community needs to be also a viable system model, and the municipality, the nation, the region, and the global citizens. The idea of cyber subsidiarity is that, and subsidiarity in general, is that the problems need to be addressed in the lowest possible context. So the closest level where the problem really happens. For example, global climate change. Climate change happens at the global scale. So that means this needs to be necessarily confronted at this level. It cannot be taken, or it cannot be dealt, and cannot be just copied at the level of for example, the individual or the community. It needs to be taken at the global level. But we have other problems that can be taken only and considered only in the lower level. So this is our model for how to build up ICTs to develop this cooperative level upon communication and upon cognition. Thank you so much.
Perhaps I agree with the general map, but the question is about the model of person, model of human being that is where you build all the model. The model of the usually in the economies there are a lot of idea of optimization. So even if you say some moment of maximization, optimization, but I mean that perhaps you need some more apparently more small scale, apparently small. That is the necessary to the idea, expand the idea of cooperation. I think some ideas related with the bound of rationality, or the idea of satisfy some object, some threshold of your aspiration. Not only if you introduce from beginning the idea of optimization, there is very difficult after to advance to the idea of cooperation, because appear the problem of the apparent problem of the impossibility of cooperation, of the impossibility of obtaining the general function of one being, the arrow theorem limitation of it. But if you study the question of the model of human being that is at the bottom of this, perhaps you obtain some other very near now to the activities of this developed by experimental economists. So this, we are not only one function, the function to try to optimize. When you mean about one single function, appear only the confrontation, the against no cooperation. But if you mean that perhaps there are some 2 or 3 kinds of selection, not only the obtain the best for one of yourself is what you think about.
Yeah, I don't remember that we took the term optimization. No. I think we did not do it, and we also do not mean it. What we have in our model, in our basic model, is a kind of bottom-up governance. That is, you start on the bottom, but you also need to take into consideration possible higher levels. And between all these levels, there is emergence. There's a leap in quality, and you cannot really, let's say, any lower level is just a necessary condition for the next level, but you cannot reduce the higher level to the lower level. There's always something new which comes in, and therefore this is a kind of dialectic between the whole thing, and it will work out by repercussions. So if you have something on the first level, this will help to make changes on the next level, but it need not to do so. But if there are changes made, this change feeds back to the level, to the lower level, and then the lower level can be reinforced. And this is a kind of dialectic which is a spiral which is open. It is open-ended.
So I agree, and actually, so the model of bounded rationality, in a sense, is implemented in the idea of the viable system model of the cyber subsidiarity, because what is being solved at each level correspond to the capacities of the persons who are participating, what they are really knowing, what can they really afford, and they solve until a certain level. And then they get a solution, but still there are several problems that are not be solved. And these are the problems, this complexity that is not being confronted or copied with this cooperation is the only complexity that needs to be dealt in the next level. So this is actually the idea of subsidiarity. But so with subsidiarity means that you don't need to optimize, for example, we have in our constitutions still the law of administrative efficiency, right? According to the law of administrative efficiency, that means if you get to prove that you can optimize the bureaucratic system, they should implement it. In principle, according to the constitution, is that if this is the bureaucratic system, because this is the principle that by centralizing you can get something very efficient. But what happened actually is that the complexity that is being developed through the growing or also it's interesting to observe how the very concept and the very idea of subsidiarity emerged. And that happened in the 18th century, no, in the 19th century, when so many problems in capitalism has arisen. And then they said, okay, we need to deal with all these problems. How do we do this? The communities, so the people need to confront the problem. But I think it's a kind of bounded rationality, but brought together in a larger picture.